Sunday.
It's Sunday morning.
I love mornings.
The games are over, and we're breaking it all down. This is your Morning After podcast, with all the insight and analysis on the Utes, Cougars, and Aggies. The Morning After podcast with Hans, Scotty, and Lloyd Cole begins right now.
And he gave us an opportunity to come in here and show what we're made of.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, good Sunday morning. It is another edition of your Morning After podcast. Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, Lloyd Cole. We got some games to talk about. And Hans, how you holding up, buddy? What time did you get home last night?
I'm doing okay. Actually, it wasn't as bad, you know. We kind of breezed through the post-game, and conversations are shorter.
A little bit quicker post-game than usual.
Quite a bit quicker post-game. But I got home about 3 o'clock, 2:45, 3 o'clock. So it wasn't as bad as 3:50 or 4:15, whatever it was the last time. But just these late kicks, and it was a rare loss on a late kick for BYU, which it's crazy how BYU takes care of business at night. But that Kansas team came out and got it done, man.
Yeah. No swatchos after a loss, too, either.
Yeah, that's the bummer. You don't even get to go out and eat some good nachos packed full of chopped brisket and fresh packed sausage. And man, that nacho cheese, and then they drizzle barbecue sauce all over it.
Is that just what kind of? How does he do the cheese on those? I've always kind of been curious about that.
It's some type of nacho cheese mixture, so it's not like a regular shredded cheddar. I don't know. He might pack like a nacho sauce with cheddar, but it's a jalapeno like cheese sauce.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever tried to emulate his swatchos? Have you ever tried to kind of make them on your own, see what you can do if you can get close?
Well, yeah, I have. But there's something about it. He uses the round tortilla chips that are a little bit thicker, so they got a little bit more crunch and bite. And
they don't get soggy.
Yeah, you kind of need that when you got
absolutely
a heaping pile of food on top of them.
You do, and it's hard to match the way he does his brisket because he chops it up, and it's just really soft and tender and packed full of smoky flavor. And so I just can't get it even close. It kind of sucks. But, that, Scotty, probably the worst part of losing was not getting to go hang out with Cam. Plus, I just love Cam.
Yeah, great dude. I got to meet him.
He does such a great job.
Met him for the first time at that hockey game we were at a couple of weeks ago. That was the first time I met him.
Oh, is that the first time you met him?
Yeah, we've interacted on Twitter a little bit, but that's the first time in person I've had a chance to sit down and chat with him. And I always get, sometimes you get annoyed when people, not annoyed, that's the wrong way to say it, but your job is sports and talking sports. And then sometimes when you run into somebody and they're like, hey, so the Jazz, am I right? And you're like, listen from noon to 3 and we'll talk about it there. But I wanted to be like, hey, so this is what I'm having some trouble with brisket. What do you, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to turn into that guy. Like, I don't want to talk shop with him, but you can't help but not. So anyway, sorry, that's Cam from Bam Bam's Barbecue. Their swatchos are absolutely elite. All right, so Hans, let's get into it. A tough loss. Kansas now stringing together a couple big wins. They knock off Iowa State. Now they've knocked off BYU. And it was a slugfest. It was just an old-fashioned drag-out fight. But BYU has just been playing with fire a lot, especially over the last few weeks. And last night it finally burned them.
It's funny you say playing with fire. There were probably 3 or 4 of the interviews that we had last night that said that exact same thing. Kalani said we've been playing with fire. I think Retzloff might have said we've been playing with fire. Tyler Batty, I think we said we've been playing with fire. So it was said in the locker room, hey, we've been messing around too much, letting these games be too close, been living on a prayer too late in these games, and it finally did burn them. And Kansas got the win. But I want to go into just a couple of specific things because I think there's probably people out there with a lot of questions in regards to a quick kick and what some of the rules are. Had a conversation with Tyler Batty on the quick kick, and for those of you that didn't see it out there, Kansas in a 4th and 11 lined up as if they were going to go for it on BYU's approximately 38 to 40-yard line. And they even took a timeout, and it felt like they had drawn up a play, and they came out in a passing formation. The ball was snapped to shotgun to Jalen Daniels, and you ran streaks on the outside. Evan Johnson, number 21 for BYU, locked up with his receiver and turned and started to run on the streak with his receiver. Tyler Batty said that he had outside pitch responsibilities. And, guys, Batty didn't know that ball was kicked, and Evan Johnson did not know that ball was kicked. What happens was Jalen kicks it almost in a passing type kick, and it goes right towards the streak off the right side, and it hits off Evan Johnson's helmet. At no point did he know it was a kick. He thought it was a pass. Tyler Batty thought it was a pass. And as it hits off Evan Johnson's helmet, that becomes a live ball. And what's crazy, Jacob Robinson falls on it, and it kind of pops out from underneath Jake Robinson, and Kansas then falls on it, and Kansas gets possession on the BYU 3 or 4 yard line and punches it in the next play, and that was the game. That was the score that gave them the lead. And it's just one of those plays that you can't even believe that you're seeing. Like I told Greg, I've been playing football since I was 8. I've seen maybe 3 or 4 in live game action quick kicks, and at no point have I ever seen it go off of a helmet. I mean,
yeah,
it's Lance Leipold has been a head coach since 2007. He said in his postgame, he says, I've used the quick kick 3 times. He said 2 times have gone well, 1 time not so good. He goes, but this is the best that it's ever gone for me, bouncing off a helmet and getting us possession on the 4-yard line. So I think a lot of people's questions out there are, wait a second, how is that a live ball when you're lined up in a passing formation and you take it off the foot? Well, that's just the rules. If you take that ball off the foot in a kicking format, that becomes a live ball. And then there was the question, which I thought was a really interesting question, how does that not become kick-catch interference? So if you think about it,
yeah,
because Evan Johnson is pressed onto the guy that would actually be returning the kick, well, you would think, would that be some type of kick-catch interference or something? If it's not lined up in a kick return formation, so if you don't got a guy back in a halo with an opportunity to fair catch, then it's not a kick catch interference. So it's just all kinds of weird rules that line up that broke BYU's back, and
it would have been almost like if somebody shanked it.
Kansas.
It would have been almost like if a punter shanked it and somebody was blocking and it hit the other guy. I'm guessing that's what it would be like. Am I wrong?
Yeah, like shank exactly. No, like shanked a bullet just off the right side and careened it off a helmet.
Right.
But guys, have you ever seen that from a quick kick ever?
No, never. I've never seen anything like it. And when I was driving around, I was listening to you and Greg when it happened, and it seemed like both of you guys immediately thought that it was first touched by a Kansas player, and it went off a Kansas player, and then just hearing you guys watch the replay and the realization, like, oh my gosh, it went off the helmet. And it just, like, all of a sudden you realize that, and that's why I like, you and Greg are, especially Greg, super passionate about BYU, but also, like, when you see it on film, it's like, okay, no, we're not going to try to spin this anyway. This is exactly what happened. And you guys were upfront and honest and said, no, that's going to be Kansas ball at the 4-yard line. And it's crazy how these little moments, because BYU at that point's up 13-10, and they forced the punt, and you got a chance to run some more clock or go down and score again and make it a 2-possession game. But at that point, all of a sudden, the momentum shifts to you have the ball at your own 10-yard line. Instead, it's, nope, Kansas has the ball at the 4, and they punch it in, and that game just, it just completely shifted. Even though BYU still had more opportunities, but even then got down, inside the 10-yard line and just couldn't punch it in. And I just felt like the whole time, BYU's going to win this. Like, I really felt like on that last drive, like, you know what? It's been a crazy game. The interception right before halftime, the weird thing going off the helmet. But at the end of the day, BYU's going to find a way to get it done, and Retzlaff's going to find a way. But as soon as you saw that false start, or I guess probably the speed option that I wasn't a huge fan of to the boundary, was the one that was like, eesh, I don't know about that. Because you want to at least give yourself – 4th and goal at the 2 or 3, but instead it's 4th and goal at the 6. Then you get the false start and 4th and goal at the 11, and that's when it really felt like, oh boy, they might lose this thing.
Ray Guy himself, by the way, could not duplicate what was done on that pooch punt. Like, I'm telling you, that was so unlucky. I don't even know how you do that. But you talked about, Scotty, that option, and they go to the short side of the field. Didn't they he audibled out of something, and because he saw something, and I was a little surprised they went with that option that went on that short side of the field. They had no room to run at all.
Well, yeah, and they brought it up on the TV broadcast. They caught Retzlaff yelling, "Kill, kill, kill," and you could hear the audio on it. So obviously he shifted from something to that option to the boundary, and obviously that didn't work and set you up a long 4th down and goal situation, which was made worse by the false start. And it's a tough way to lose, Hans. I want to go back a little bit. Was there any talk about, because they ran that fade route against Utah and it didn't go well, and then they do it again before halftime, was that on the receiver, not putting himself in a good position, or at least not trying to contest that? Or is that on Retzlaff and just a bad throw? Or what, give me kind of your thoughts on that, even though I know you haven't had a chance to really break down the film on this yet.
Well, we did talk to Chase Roberts about it after, and there was a mesh receiving option off the left side. So I think it was trip set off the left side. I think that Tavatase was on solo receiver set, lined up wide out, and you have a couple of the best corners in the country in Kansas. It just, Mello Dotson is, he's one of the best in the country. He had a pick 6 last week against Iowa State, and he's got 4 interceptions on the year. Mello Dotson, guys, he was the dude that he had 3 pass deflections and shut down things last year against BYU. And Mello dropped back into the perfect area in the end zone where his athleticism can get him to the fade corner and at least force that thing out of bounds. So what happened was Jake Retzlaff just read it as a one-on-one matchup that he felt like he favored, and Chase kind of made it sound like there were options off the left side, but Retzlaff then said, I made the decision to throw that way, and he goes, and I'll be honest with you guys, it was just a bad throw. It was a bad throw. He underthrew it. As you guys know, if you're going to run a post fade corner, that quick post move to the inside, and then you run up the field, and then you get all the way to the back corner of the end zone, and it's the quarterback's job to put that pass on the top of the pylon on the back corner, which means that only the receiver can get either fingertips on it and toe tap inbounds, or it's out of bounds. Yeah. You guys have seen that throw 1,000 times. You know it has to be deep because, as Jake Retzlaff mentioned, there was nobody over the top of that protection. But Dotson just got himself into a perfect zone set where he had a man responsibility, but he had a zone to man, and he dropped back into the zone part of the end zone, and the ball was underthrown. So a lot to take in there, guys, but he had options off the left side. I think Chase Roberts kind of felt like there were options off the left side. He made the decision to throw it, and then he just said, it was a bad throw. I underthrew it. He's got to throw it up higher. He's got to go throw it to the back of the corner so it either goes out of bounds or into Tava's fingertips where he can toe tap, and that just didn't happen.
The reason I don't like that play call is because you're first and goal at the KU 5. And to be honest with you, LJ Martin and Hinkley Rapati, both of them ran hard.
Yeah,
like
they were killing that drive.
They were killing them. And it just feels like you're first and goal. Like, let's not overthink this. Just power it in. See what you can get. See if you can get at least to the 1 yard line, and then there's plenty of options, even more options. It's just, I know that's, you could second guess it all you want. First and goal at the 5, and that's, I hate the fade route anyways. I'm not a fan of the fade route. That goes back to years of watching Derek Carr just blunder it, the fade route, and so I'm not a fan of it. I just don't think it's the greatest option, especially when you have a team that's actually really running the ball really well with 2 guys actually. So
yeah, just some really ugly moments, and even then it just still felt like BYU had every opportunity to win that game. But I think it is important. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hans.
Oh, I said no. Yeah, it did. I was just agreeing with you. I felt like they had it.
So, I know that BYU fans are hurting today, and I get it. I totally understand it. But let me just reiterate why this is so important to understand and appreciate why you're in a big boy conference and the value that comes from that, because that sucked. It hurt. And it really damages your chance. In fact, it eliminates really your chance of an at-large spot in the college football playoff. But you still control your own destiny. And you beat Arizona State next week. You finish the season 2-0. You're playing in a Big 12 title game. And you win that, you're still a top 4 seed going into the college football playoff. You still have that first-round bye. Everything you want is still in front of you. Now, look, had this happened in Independence, guess what? You go 11-1 or 6-6, you're still going to the same bowl game. Doesn't matter. You know, that's why it would always kind of suck for BYU when they had that first loss, because it's like, well, off we go to the Independence Bowl. You know, we could lose 5 more games or we could go 11-1. It doesn't matter. We're going to the same place. That's not the case anymore. You win out, you're still going to the college football playoff. Your goals are still in front of you. And I know that Arizona State game looms large, and that is an elimination game for both teams. Arizona State wins that game, they could be in the conference championship game. BYU, same thing. But whoever loses that game, yes, you're out of contention. That's true. But at least you have a chance going into that game in Phoenix coming up next week.
Yeah. That's ratcheted up, though, hasn't it, guys?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Arizona State destroyed Kansas State. They were up 24-0, and Kansas State scored a couple of touchdowns late to try to make it interesting. But
I had a double take on that. I was like, wait, what? 24-0? Huh?
Oh, they smashed them. And there's a couple of things we can get into it during the week. We'll talk more about Arizona State, so jump on it. But that game just became very, very important, because if Arizona State beats you, they're in the running for the Big 12 championship. That will give them the tiebreaker. It could be Arizona State, Colorado, if Arizona State gets the win next week. So it's weird how you went from in the driver's seat to now sweat pouring down your brow and thinking, geez, if the wheels come off this operation, then we're looking on the outside. Then we're just trying to hold on to Houston and see if we could get a nice bowl draw. So it's a wild turn of emotion, and these guys are going to have to deal with it. And the other thing that I want to point out before I move on from BYU, this is now the 4th consecutive game where we've seen points fall off for BYU. So Arizona, you scored 41. Oklahoma State, you scored 38. UCF, you scored 37. Utah, you scored 22. And now you scored 13. And the point that I made yesterday during the postgame was, you've been relying a lot on defensive scores and special team scores. You've been relying on scoop and scores or pick sixes or kick returns for touchdowns or punt returns for touchdowns. And you've also relied on short fields, interceptions where it gives you a 15, 20-yard field and you've got opportunities to score. Well, BYU's offense now has to figure out how to score, and they're going to have to self-scout, guys. If I'm Aaron Roderick, I'm looking at these scores and I'm looking at last night and I'm saying, where's our tail? Scotty, we sit at those poker tables and you have 3 or 4 guys call your bluff and you're like, geez, man, something's happening here.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I got to change up my game because something's happening. They're seeing something or they know something. So you got to shift it up and you got to shake it up and see what you can find. And the other thing that I thought Mitch Juergens brought up that I think you got to look at, they had a 10-minute and 30-second drive. Mm-hmm. Scotty, when's the last time you saw a 10-minute?
Yeah, to start the third quarter.
Yeah, when's the last time you saw a drive like that?
And I know your next point, and not end the way you want it to end is shocking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, ends with 3. That's taking too much time. So what Mitch said was, how about you find some hurry up and you find a little bit of lightning, because when they ran the 2-minute, as Lloyd mentioned, to get them all the way down into the 5-yard line where they threw the pick to Tasse. Well, that was working, and that momentum and that speed is working. So Aaron Roderick has some work to do. He's got to find a way to put probably 28 to 30 points on the board, whether it's a mixture of good field position with a little bit of special teams help, whatever it is. He's going to have to hurry up. But these 10-minute drives, they don't allow you to put that kind of points on the board. And I see the criticisms for Roderick. Stop it. Roderick's had a good season, and he's had some really electric moments. Stop it. I'm not doing this again. Just stop it. He just needs to figure out how to get some points on the board in Phoenix.
Yeah, you've got 1 loss on the year. Was it a tough loss? Absolutely, but calm down.
Yeah,
just calm down. I know it's easy to get caught up in it, but yeah, I saw some of that on Twitter, and I was just like, okay, I'm done here. Time to close up this app.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, talking about time to close up the app, Twitter was hopping yesterday morning after that Utah loss. Now 6 in a row, and they give up 49 points to Colorado. Kyle Whittingham, after the game, Lloyd said, this is the best team by far that they faced all season long. How impressed were you with Prime in Colorado after watching that game?
Oh, I was extremely impressed with that Colorado team. That offense, Shedeur Sanders. I'll just say it. You know what? I'm all about the Raiders trying to get that first pick and getting Shedeur Sanders now. That's good offense. He is good. He takes some sacks, and you're just like, wow, you got to get rid of that ball. But that offense is phenomenal, but that Utah's defense played strong. That's a tough defense, and people were talking about, hey, why are you running up the score? And I'm like, are you kidding me? You put up 49 points on this Utah defense, and that is a feather in the cap.
Yeah,
that's not something. Kyle, this is the first time this year that 30 plus points has been put up on Utah, and the first time that 49 points since 2013. I want to say it was Oregon that's done it. Teams don't put up this many points on this Utah defense, and that's a good team. That is a really good team, and you know what, this has been a tough season to talk about because I know we've talked about it many times. This is not the season that anybody, whether it was Utah fans or the coaching staff, the players, media, expected to happen for Utah. But here we are. The way that game started, it was, we talked about this team needs to find a way to get turnovers, and guess what? They got turnovers against Colorado, but guess what? The story was that offense just is not working. That they did finally score their 24 points, but it didn't matter. That offense was too potent to go against. But Lander Barton, opens it up with a game, first play, first drive for Colorado, and he picks it, and they're in business. And you think, okay, maybe you put 6 points on here, maybe you quiet the crowd, you get a little momentum, and it never happened. They put themselves in some pretty good positions. The defense did put their offense in good positions, and they only scored 6 points on those turnovers. So it was a tough game to watch. It's been a tough season to watch.
What's crazy is these 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions thrown, and then a fumble lost. That gives you 21 turnovers on the season. Utah has turned it over 21 times this season. Now that gives you a -8, I believe. You're -8, which would put you in the bottom, probably 110, 115 in the country. So -8 on the turnover battle, and it goes back to the quarterback situation. Isaac Wilson, he looked really lost at times, and then all of a sudden he would find himself, like when they found that tight end drive with Carson Ryan, and they bang it down and then hit Caleb Lohner in the end zone, and you're like, whoa, holy cow, the tight ends and Isaac Wilson. And then all of a sudden Isaac's throws were really rough, man, really rough, and bad decisions. And so you got a mixed bag with this young kid that how about Isaac even playing and starting? Again, I don't know if Utah was trying to throw out some bad rumors or misinformation or what exactly was going on, but there was a lot of rumors swirling that Isaac wasn't even going to make the trip, and so Utah continues to mess with the quarterback situation.
On that point, Hans, I mean, he did talk about it in the postgame. That, I mean, and I don't know if it was illness or whatever. I'm not going to speculate on whatever the issue was, but it sounds like, I mean, Isaac only took part of the reps throughout the week. So it's another week where Isaac didn't take all of the reps. Whatever that issue is, if there was an illness or whatever there was, like whatever it was another week where you're, I guess, essentially your QB1 is not taking all the reps.
Yeah.
And that's not a recipe for success. That's just, he needs all the reps that he can get. And like I said, I don't know the situation, but you talk about those turnovers, and I'll tell you another area that we haven't seen Utah really struggle like this, and that's special teams. Their special teams is really bad. And you might as well count that as another turnover. They give up another return for a touchdown, and that's like another turnover pretty much. That's their special teams. They gave up some long ones where it put Colorado in great position, and they are not doing a whole lot right. That defense, played well. But they gave up, they gave up some big plays. I mean, as far as their third down defense was great. Actually, they were Colorado was 3 of 11, but they gave up big gashing plays. Like on second down, maybe even second and long. And they got him behind the sticks a couple times, but they gave up huge plays to Colorado. So I mean, the defense had a pretty good game, but they did give up. So they did get gashed.
Well, you go back to the Ron McBride mentioned after the BYU game in which BYU had the return for the score, and Mac questioned some of the the hustle, some of the want to out of Utah and their special teams unit. And I'm watching that one yesterday, and I need to go back and look at it again. I was up in the booth at Utah State getting ready for the game and watching the Utah game at the same time, so I had to go baback and watch, but nobody laid a finger on the guy. And the dude had a lane that was wide open, and off he went. And, again, it's just there's so much about this year. It's one thing to have a losing season, but it's another thing when it's like, wait a minute, this is a very un-Utah-like performance this year that we really haven't seen in quite some time, where there's a lack of execution and there's a lack of physicality. And it's one thing when Utah went 5-7, those, that year 2 and year 3 in the Pac-12, and you knew that they were just trying to ramp up the talent, and they were just trying to ramp up to where they needed to be able to compete week in and week out at that level. And so there was a little bit of grace given there. But this is different, Hans. This just feels different because it's like, where's the Utah bully? The team that would come in and just smack you in the mouth. And even if you found a way to win that game, you came out bruised and bloodied and wondering what just happened. I'm not getting that sense with Utah right now, and that's what's really been surprising to see this throughout this 6-game losing skid.
Well, what really stood out to me was, and I know Moko Fisi's out, and you got some offensive line issues, but outside of Spencer Fano, there were some real problems with the offensive line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Real problems. And I know Warren Sapp is spilling everything he's got onto this defensive line, and they're starting to take on some of their identity. And there was one D tackle, in the middle that is pretty fantastic. He's really good and had good extension, but left guard got abused a couple of times. I sent you guys a quick clip of was it the right tackle, Lomu?
Yeah.
Yep.
Where he just got, just abused, just absolutely flattened. And so the offensive line they're having a little bit of trouble, some continuity issues. I think there's been some mix and match, and there's been a couple of problems. But Spencer Fano, once again, was special. He just sits there and gets in his set and jams dudes up and looked really good. But it was popcorn problems across the other four pretty consistently. So I worry about that. The offensive line, you've never worried about it with Jim Harding.
No, and you had there. And they couldn't run the ball at all. You had Mike Mitchell, 7 attempts for 28 yards. Mekhi Bernard, 11 attempts for 20 yards. Charlie Vincent, 1 for 2. Like they couldn't run the ball. The teams do what they've done against Utah since they had these struggles. They loaded the box and try to get the Isaac Wilson to beat him, or Ike Wilson, as the announcers called him, which I might start calling him. They tried to see if he could beat him, which more times than not he couldn't. Outside, I will say, and you brought it up, Hans. I know, he had some. There were some bad moments. He's had a lot of bad moments, but he did have some small little glimpses where you saw some things. I just think that there needs to be more of those brighter moments than those dark moments.
Well, it's rough sledding for Utah now. Losers of 6 in a row after starting the year 4-0, and we all thought we'd see ourselves an undefeated showdown between BYU and Utah now at 4-6 on the season with 2 games left to go. And needing to go 2-0, Hands, just to make it to a bowl game, and you wonder where the motivation is.
No answers on the horizon.
Nope, that's the thing. It's the cavalry's not coming this season. It could very well, but there's a lot of rumblings, and I've said this on the air a couple times, but the rest of college football has dealt with the transfer portal and all the other issues, and Utah has built such a wonderful culture up there where they haven't really been bit by massive transfers, or they've lost a key player here and there, but never like oh my gosh, the hits just keep on coming. Guess what? You lose games and you have a season like this, the wave could hit you, and it would not surprise me if there is a lot of conversation, a lot of smoke, and that collective is going to really have to step up. And Kyle Whittingham, if he decides to come back for another season, is really going to have to re-recruit his own team to come back for another season, because I think that Utah might get a good dose of what the rest of college football has been dealing with. They've been really fortunate because when you win games, guys want to stick around, guys want to be a part of it, and Kyle has built such an incredible culture up there of winning and physicality and camaraderie, and then when it goes south, it can go south on you in a hurry, and guys are like, no, I got options. Look at my DMs here. This school's offering me this much. This school's offering me this much. I'm out. And it can get you real quick. And Utah's got some work to do, not just in recruiting, not just in restocking, but also keeping guys that they ultimately want to keep. This is just speculation on my part, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that recruited Isaac Wilson that said, hey, they're not treating you well, or they're putting you in a situation to fail. We wanted you all along. Come on over, and we'll get you right, and we'll get you back on track. Don't worry about this one bit. And, sometimes that's hard for players to when a season doesn't go their way. That's hard for a player to walk away from when they have options out there. So it's going to be a fascinating month of December at the University of Utah. All right, Utah State, Hands, puts up a double nickel, 55-10 over Hawaii. The Aggies, who had just been roughed up all season long defensively, giving up 44 points a game. And they hold Hawaii to 10 points and, frankly, just give up a late touchdown with their second and third stringers in the game. Other than that, they hold Hawaii, for the most part, just to a field goal. Offense explodes. It was one of those games where everything is clicking, and we just haven't seen that this year from Utah State, where the offense, defense, and even special teams we're all humming and playing at extremely high level. This defense, which has been roughed up and much maligned, they come up with huge stops. They force 3 3-and-outs to start the game. They're out to an early 17-0 lead. Petrus is just dropping dimes. You got Rasul Faison, who ends up with 2 rushing touchdowns and 191 yards on the ground. He was just a flat-out man in that game. And an impressive victory for Utah State. Now 8 consecutive victories over Hawaii.
Is 2 for 2 for 2 touchdowns? Is that good?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Bryson Barnes had 2 completions, 2 for 2 passing, and 2 touchdowns. So all of his completions, 100% of the passes he threw, hands went for touchdowns.
That's a good day. Jeez.
Plus 5 carries for 20 yards. How did his runs look, Scotty?
Good. And, he's just Mr. third down or fourth down, and they're like, hey, you know what? We need to get a first down. Bryson, go out there and get it for us. And he's like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. And it was funny because the first touchdown pass, they line up and they put him in at the goal, I want to say 2 or 3 yard line. They bring him in the game. They spread everybody out. It screams quarterback draw. Everybody's like, oh, here comes the quarterback draw. And he gets the snap and takes 2 steps like he's running the draw. And it's like that old Ben Moa play that they ran in that 04 team or 03 team where all of a sudden he stops and just gets a little lollipop pop pass to the tight end. And everybody sunk in thinking it was quarterback draw. And he just drops it in over the top for the touchdown. And I asked Kyle Cefalo, the offensive coordinator, if Bryson Barnes, who we saw those first 2 game 2 and game 3, did not start a conference game, but I asked Seth if Bryson Barnes is your starter next year, can he be a high-level Mountain West Conference quarterback? Because Petrus is gone. And with the weapons that they have, if they're able to hold on to these guys and bring back that offensive line, bring back some of those wide receivers, Faison's gone, but Briggs will be back, and you've got a great up-and-comer in Herschel Turner. If you get these guys to come back, I asked him, can Bryson Barnes be a upper-level Mountain West Conference quarterback? He goes, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. If he's our starter next year, Bryson can 1,000% lead us to a bunch of victories. And, Hans, you've been saying that all along, that you thought Bryson Barnes could be a high-level Mountain West guy.
Well, I'm watching what the Madsen kid is doing at Boise State, and I do think Madsen's got a little more consistent arm, but they're a similar style of play. They're both extremely tough, very physical, durable, fast, shifty, explosive in moments. And I think Bryson could be that style of quarterback. So if you just can come in and rebuild a little bit of defense and find a person or two to get a pass rush, all of a sudden you got defense working, you got this offense working. I personally, if I came in, I would take a real hard look about changing much offensively.
No,
because this Utah State offense, Scotty, it feels like all year has been up to par.
Yep. Offense has not been an issue at Utah State. Defense certainly has, and that's why if you bring in a defensive-minded head coach and you let the offense continue to do its thing, and you say, hey, I'm going to fix the defense, you keep averaging 34 points a game, and we're going to be just fine, Utah State can turn this thing around in a hurry. And I have little doubt that if they hire the right coach that can fix that defense and you keep some offensive stability, Utah State will be just fine next year. Absolutely be just fine. And they'll be back in a bowl game. And frankly, I think if you hit on some nice transfers and you get guys back healthy, you could be competing. I know it feels weird when you're 3-7 on the season, but you very quickly could be back in a contention for a Mountain West Conference title.
Tell me more about Nick Floyd.
Yeah, that was the first time he touched the ball yesterday. He had not had a carry all season long, and he gets some time. He actually had they were going to use him a little bit earlier in the year when Faison was starting to get a little banged up, and they wanted to get him some carries, and they had him on a kickoff return. And he's a youngster, and he kind of he panicked when the ball bounced at the 5 and went to the 1-yard line, and it would have gone into the end zone, but he panicked and picked it up and got tackled at like the 3-yard line. And then we never saw him again. And that was like 2 or 3 games ago until yesterday. And he ripped off some good carries. They brought in another running back who had some nice carries as well. He had a touchdown. And then you throw in Herschel Turner, who didn't have to do much yesterday. By the time that, but I think Herschel Turner has a chance to be really special. And Nate Dreiling says he'll be the face of this team in about 2 years. So they're stocked at running back. They're stocked at offensive line. And, again, it's a big if they can bring everybody back, because I guarantee guys like Teague Anderson is going to have DMs blowing up saying, hey, you know what? You don't have to go 3-7. You don't have to go 4-8. Come on in. Let's get you paid and let's get you loved up. Those guys are going to be highly sought after. But if you make the right hire, you bring Cooper Bassett back, you bring Kyle Cephalo back, and guess what? You're ready to go. And I think these dudes would return. That's just me speculating. I haven't talked to them, but I believe that if you keep those coaches in place that these guys will run through a wall for, I got a sneaking suspicion they'd probably come back for that 2025 season. And then it's go time. Hey, by the way, props. You see Bronco Mendenhall? How about the Lobos coming back from behind and knocking off Washington State, a really good Washington State team in Albuquerque?
That's incredible, but that's so Bronco, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great win for him. I saw that it was that they had a small lead late, but he held on to it, huh? Yeah,
38-35, and they were down, I want to say, I know at least 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3 touchdowns in that game. But Bronco fixes things, as strange and bizarre as that guy can be. If you need somebody to fix your team, Bronco's your guy.
It's crazy. Will he be in New Mexico next year?
Yeah,
or does where he's changed the culture even in just 1 year? Does he get the possible shot that he's looking for somewhere?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question there for sure. Well, gentlemen, Hans, I got one more Bar W beef ribeye that's left, and that's all I got. We did get a text that the cavalry's on its way on that one, but
I ran into Bart yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Was he at the BYU game or?
He was. Yeah, he was, and I gave him a big hug and I said, "Oh man, it's incredible what you do. Their beef is just the best." All I have left is a roast, so I just got to get that roast out, and get it in the crock pot.
Yeah,
rump roast.
Yeah, rump roast.
Yeah, rump roast, nice.
So you put it in the crock pot? Are you gonna like Mississippi or roast that thing, or how are you gonna cook that bad boy?
Yeah, carrots, potatoes,
okay.
Just good old traditional.
School.
Just
yep.
Midwestern Idaho kind of roast.
Yeah, there you go. I'll put the meat on the bones right there. Lloyd, you got anything big planned for today?
You know what? We had Jackie Blue. My man turned 6 yesterday, so we had a little family gathering.
Jackie Blue is 6 years old. Holy smokes.
I know. Jackie Blue is 6 and still running the household. So we're gonna take him out, and he's been wanting to go to like a little jump house type place, one of those trampoline places. So we're gonna do something like that. Nothing on no grilling today. We're gonna keep it pretty simple tonight. But yeah, we had a nice dinner last night, so it's good.
All right, gentlemen, we're back at it tomorrow, high noon. You'll hear from Kalani, you'll hear from Kyle, you'll hear from Nate Dreiling. We'll have a busy show for you coming up tomorrow, starting at noon. Hans and Scotty, that is your Morning After podcast right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This has been your Morning After podcast with Hans, Scotty, and Lloyd Cole. Catch more of the Hans and Scotty Show weekdays from noon to 3 and in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your podcasting platform of choice. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.